What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. It's time to look ahead to the big game on Wednesday against Young Boys. I'm delighted to be joined by Craig King from Football Swiss EN on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter. Craig, thanks for taking the time to join us today. Much appreciated.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
First of all, then, I just want to start with, if we go form-wise, how are Young Boys shaping up? I think everybody knows they've had difficulties in the Champions League, and I suppose we can come back to that in a few minutes. But how did they go on at the weekend, and what's their form like at the minute?
Yeah, so the form's certainly better than it was at the start of the season. You know, they started the season with 4 wins from 10 games. 2 of them were against teams from lower divisions in the Cup, and 2 of them were home and away to Galatasaray, which makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah, but they were really struggling. And after they changed manager in October, or they sacked the manager in October, had the under-21s coach in interim charge, which is the second time they've had to do that in a few years. He kind of steadied it a wee bit, but they've still been pretty inconsistent. They've been drawing a lot of games, not been losing as many games, but yeah, been drawing quite a lot of games. And then they took the winter break that's just finished at the weekend there. They took that time to appoint Giorgio Contini, who was assistant to Murat Yakin at Switzerland. He was a big part of the reason why Switzerland did so well in the summer at the Euros. He was credited with a lot of that because Switzerland weren't particularly good before that in qualifying under Yakin, so he got a lot of praise for that, and now he comes into this job off the back of other good jobs that he'd done in the Swiss Super League. You know, he took Vaduz from the second tier, a team from Liechtenstein. You know, they hadn't really been up that high, up to 7th in the table in 2 seasons in a row, and he'd done a generally a good job. So he's come in, probably his biggest job in terms of one that he's just managing himself. He's never really been at a team that's been challenging for the title. He had that first game at the weekend, and it was probably the perfect first game for him in terms of the opponent. He was playing Winterthur, who fighting relegation, who Patrick Raman, who was the Young Boys manager, he was the manager at them, and it was his work at Winterthur that got him the Young Boys job, so it kind of came full circle. But that game would have been seen as the opportunity, you know, to get a win on the board before going to this difficult away game in Europe where Young Boys haven't really been performing. But it didn't really work out like that. They drew 0-0. And they probably should have won that game. They had so many chances. They should have won the game, to be honest, and didn't take those chances. But I think there was a lot of positives there going forward. You know, it's still early days in this rain first game. And yeah, I think going forward they'll be all right. If they create that many chances, they'll score goals. It's just not ideal to start off with a goalless draw, but I think generally they'll improve going forward and start moving up the table, because they're still unbelievably only 8 points off the top, so they're still actually in a title race despite being 9th in the table.
Wow, that's incredible. It's quite a small league, in it. Can you give us a bit of background then? They obviously won the title last season.
Yeah.
How have they gone from winning the title last season to starting the season the way they did? And obviously, I think the way they started the season, they were near the bottom of the table, weren't they? What's happened there? Why has there been such a fall off?
You know, I think a lot of people expected there to be a kind of title race this season, but I don't think anyone expected it to start how it did. Young Boys had a kind of similar problem a few years ago. Zurich came from nowhere and won the title. Young Boys finished 3rd that season. They responded by appointing Raphael Wicki, who was manager at Basel before that, and that seems to be a theme. I think they go for ex-Basel managers when things start to go wrong. But so they were in the title race last season for much of the season. Lugano and Servette have been up there, and they were challenging right until, you know, just before the league split. And then after that, they kind of fell away. Young Boys actually sacked Raphael Wicki just before that. And again, their under-21s coach came in, interim charge, and he kind of led them to the title after that. And they finished 12 points clear at the top. So it seems like it was quite an easy title win in the end, like it has been a lot of times for Young Boys over the last decade or so. But yeah, they were kind of pushed all the way, and it was only in that kind of last part of the season where they pushed ahead. But I think after that, they've just got complacent. I don't know if they felt that, if that points gap just didn't tell them the full story, and they just assumed that, you know, they were going to keep dominating, almost kind of like in Basel when their domination ended. They were in a similar situation where they just kept obviously winning, and then they didn't strengthen properly, and, you know, it fell away from there. And I think Young Boys, it's been a similar case. They didn't really strengthen in the summer. They still got a strong squad, and one that should definitely not be in the bottom half of the table. They should be performing better. But I think they didn't strengthen properly, and the choice of manager was a risk. This is a guy who did okay at Basel. He kind of steadied the ship there when they were going through one of their many transitional periods over the last 2 years. And and he did a great job at Winterthur. They had them up in that top half of the table, Swiss Cup semi-final, which was kind of unprecedented for them. But, it just didn't work out. It was a risk to take that risk when they were pushed kind of so close the season before. And it didn't happen for them, and they've had to make that change again. They've had to then obviously bring in an under-21 coach to manage them again, and then make this appointment now. But the message from them really has been kind of, they want to make this one stick. They don't want to have to keep changing managers. And it's crazy to me that they keep changing managers because they have been so successful over the last decade or so. I can't remember how many. I think it's 6 out of 7 titles or something like that they've won. So it seems odd that they should be in this position where they have to keep recycling managers, but that's kind of the way it's went for them. But I do think this one will stick and they will improve. But again, it's just kind of seems like it just mismanagement at certain parts of the club, and complacency definitely that they've let creep in, that have kind of chipped away at the huge lead they had. Because at one point a few years ago, I think they've got the joint world record, at least in Europe, for points gap in the title. Right. So they won the title by 31 points. I think it was 2018, 2019. Only BSC can match that, so they were so far ahead at one point, and now they're kind of been dragged back by clubs you wouldn't necessarily expect. It's not Basel that are catching them, it's Lugano and Servette who've been a lot smarter about how they've done things and closed that gap. So Young Boys definitely aren't, they're still at the top of the tree, but I think that's under threat this season and going forward.
Yeah. Did they lose any key players in the summer, or was it more just about the sort of managerial stuff and everything else at the club?
Yeah, I mean, they lost a couple of players, but to be honest, the squad, they've had a lot of this squad for so many years. Their keeper's so experienced. They did lose their captain. He retired, but again, he wasn't playing as often. They've still got the bulk of their kind of attacking players that have produced so much for them. So again, this squad is good enough, and it should be a lot higher than it is. They should be challenging for the title. There's no doubt about that, especially with how inconsistent the league is. The very fact that they are only 8 points behind in 9th place, it kind of shows how everyone's taking points off of everyone else, which isn't necessarily a good sign for the league generally in Europe and all that sort of stuff. But it's a squad that's more than capable, and it's just been underperforming. So again, I do think it comes down to the manager. I think he's been dealt a kind of bad hand, that he wasn't given the free rein to go and buy players and improve the squad further. But also, you need to be getting more out of a squad that ultimately, as much as they did struggle last season, they still finished 12 points ahead, so it should be better.
Aye, absolutely. So it's obviously early days for the new manager that's just came in. So it'll be difficult to tell, I suppose, his style of playing, what he's trying to change. I mean, how would you describe the way that Young Boys usually approach the game?
Well, generally they are the team on the front foot, home and away. Control the possession. Dominate the game. It is hard to tell under this manager because he has just started. In his previous jobs, sometimes he switches formations quite a lot. I think it was he used to go 3 at the back with Roseanne, 4 at the back, Grasshoppers. It changes quite a lot. He was 4 at the back, 1 striker. With Young Boys at the weekend, he generally does play 1 striker. But I don't think his philosophy or Young Boys' philosophy will change much going forward. I still think they'll look to be the dominant team, especially at home. Away from home depends on the opposition. Swiss football's kind of a lot different to other kind of leagues and of a similar level where teams don't necessarily sit in so deep. Like even when Winterthur went to Young Boys at the weekend to play Young Boys, they sat in to an extent, but they didn't. It's nothing like backs to the wall sort of thing. So I think Young Boys always look to be the dominant team, but in Europe it's a different story. But I do think generally going forward, the manager will probably have a good effect on the team. He's bilingual. He's a very good motivator as well, and he's already made a decision to replace the goalkeeper, David Van Balmoes, who's made over 200 appearances for the club. He's been there for so long, and he's made the decision to bring in the new number 1, Marvin Keller, who's 22, who was kind of on the fringes. And I don't know if that's just going to be specifically a change for the league, or if it's going to be across in Europe as well. That'll be interesting to see on Wednesday. But yeah, he's already made a big decision there, which may kind of upset the fan base who see this goalkeeper obviously as one of the club legends. But he sees it as a necessary decision. So yeah, he's not been scared to make those changes, and I don't think he will be scared to make those changes going forward. And I don't necessarily think you'll see the best of him or Young Boys until next season. I think this season's really all about just, making sure for sure that they get in the top half of the table before the split, and then hopefully in Europe as well.
Yeah, so thinking about the way that Celtic play, obviously we like to dominate possession as well. We're the home team on Wednesday. Do you think that Young Boys will keep their same approach, or do you think, given that they've got nothing to play for in terms of the Champions League, that'll throw the shackles off? Will they defend more than usual? How do you think that will play out?
It's a difficult one because, they've not got anything to play for, but also I'm pretty sure they don't want to finish bottom of this table. I think Champions League generally was a bonus for them this year because not many expected them to get past Galatasaray, and then they won away 1-0 to go through, and it was just totally unexpected. And then, but the performances generally at this level haven't been good enough, been conceding goals so often. So yeah, I think they don't want to finish bottom of that table because, for me anyway, they're better than teams like Slovan Bratislava, but it's not shown so far. They've got a home game, I think it's next week, against Red Star, where that maybe will be seen as the one where they can, go out and get that win and try and move them off the bottom of the table. And I'm not so sure they'll be expecting much from Wednesday night. I definitely don't think. I think it would be foolish, and I don't think Contini will put them out there to, go and attack Celtic. I think they'll just try and take their chances on the break. They've got speedy wingers, fast attacking players that can hurt Celtic if they get into those positions. And if they can do that, then they can definitely get a goal. But I think that if they come out of there and get beat, I don't think it will change anything going forward. I don't think any of the fan base is really expecting anything. I think it's more excitement about going and enjoying, great atmosphere and enjoying the game without obviously getting beat 5 or 6 like they have done to Barcelona and Stuttgart and all these teams. If they can keep it, kind of a low-scoring game, and if they can nick something, great. But if they can't, then it is what it is. It's not really the focus now. I think domestic football takes over from now, and it's just kind of about getting Champions League out of the way. But of course, getting points on the board would be nice. You don't want to finish as the worst team in this new phase of the Champions League.
Aye, absolutely. You talked about the speed and the counter attacks there, the wide players. That's a good link, because my next question was, who are the key men, who are the danger men that Celtic need to be wary of?
Player I really like up front, Joe Montero, who he had a better season last season, like most of this team, but he's just been capped by the Swiss national team last year. He scored his first goal against Spain, away to Spain, in his last game there. He's only got 5 goals this season, but again, he was very good against Galatasaray in the home leg. He scored 2 goals. He's fast, and he's a pretty good finisher as well. So he's probably the main threat for me. They've got 2 strikers, Silver Gamboa and Cedric Eaton, who many will know, who kind of switch. And again, they've not been free scoring this season either, but again, they're probably where the goals are going to come from. Felipe Grunic is a Switzerland Swiss midfielder. He's been playing in the national team for the last wee while now as well. He's been one of the few bright sparks, always leading the team. And also I like Misha Elia, who's probably going to come off the bench if he does play very, very fast. He's not been as strong this season. He's not played as often, but if he comes on, he's going to cause a lot of problems down that wing with his pace. And he's scored a great goal against Leipzig and Man City in last season's Champions League, so he's definitely a goal threat. Chips in with assists as well. So if he starts, he's probably one that will create something for Young Boys in that game. And also at the back, they've got Loris Benito, who's a captain, very experienced, but defensively they've struggled this season. So I think he's on to hiding for nothing, trying to lead that defence to anything, to be honest.
Aye, well, again, that's the follow-up question there was going to be, like, what are the weaknesses? What are the things you think Celtic can exploit in this Young Boys team?
Yeah, again, defensively, they've just not. I think they've kept 5 clean sheets this season, which just isn't good enough. And if you've been conceding so many goals in the Champions League, if it was 5 to Stuttgart, I think 6 at home to Atalanta. You know, you expect them to lose these games, but not to get absolutely trounced like they did. And they've just not really had a settled backline, to be honest. You know, even Benito was injured at the start of the season, came back from a pretty bad injury, and it's been switched around so often. They've also got Mo Kamara, who for some reason every manager that's come in over the last 5 years seems to like him, but he's he's a bomb scare in defence, always capable of a mistake. So if he's in the starting lineup, then that's one to be excited about for Celtic. But yeah, I don't see how this Young Boys defence gets away with not conceding 1 or 2 goals against this Celtic attack. You know, if Celtic don't trouble this defence and don't score goals against this defence, then it's just, you know, really poor performance from them, because Young Boys are there for the taking. I know there's a lot of confidence going into this game against Young Boys, and there should also be, you know, kind of acknowledgement that Young Boys on the break and with the attacking talent they've got can hurt Celtic. But yeah, there's no reason why Celtic can't score a couple of goals at least.
Aye, let's hope so. From our point of view. Just the last bit then, Craig, before we let you go, thanks for your insight. How do you see the game going? I would usually ask guests for a prediction, how they see it going.
Yeah, I think 3-0, 3-1 maybe. I think it should be a comfortable win for Celtic. Again, it comes down to, there's a lot of expectation on Celtic to win this game, and it's obviously a must-win game for them. So, you know, that might change things, but there's no reason why they can't go and win this. Young Boys are still kind of fragile. You know, even with the new manager, they're not winning games. They're still drawing a lot of games, and they're not keeping the goals out. So, yeah, Celtic should be able to win this game. Young Boys are capable of a surprise or two every now and again. They did beat Galatasaray, of course, and they've had a couple of good results in Europe over the last few years, but their away record generally is very poor as well. So, yeah, it's all there for Celtic to win this game, and they definitely should take that opportunity that's in front of them. I think in any other year, a game against Young Boys at home, they'd look to win it, and that's even with Young Boys at their best. And this is a Young Boys team that's probably the worst for quite a while. So if they don't take that opportunity, then it's an opportunity missed. So yeah, I can't see anything but a Celtic win.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, thanks very much, Craig, for your time, for your insight tonight. That's it for the preview show. Like the video, comment with your own thoughts on Wednesday's game below, and I'll see you tomorrow for the starting 11 prediction. Thank you.